Welcome to Home Dad Chat, brought to you by the National At-Home Dad Network. My name is Brock,
My name is Danny.
and we are here to talk about life as stay-at-home dads. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
No, I don't want much. I even love handmade crafts made of macaroni. Come on now, you should know me. Times I might eat too much. No worry about my weight, got the dad bod rocking on me. Sketches on my feet, cargo shorts look good on me. I'm a dad, that's what I do.
Welcome to today's show. My name is Brock, and with me today I've got a special guest because unfortunately Danny couldn't be here today, and that is all right. The nice part is that I've got a whole plethora of awesome dads to pull in for the show. Today I've got Jonathan Heisey-Grove. He is the president of the National At-Home Dad Network, and we're going to have a fun conversation today that is relevant about what's going on and what needs to change about the look of stay-at-home parents and just equality and all of that wrapped up into one big fun conversation that we're going to try to do in an hour. But Jonathan, thanks for coming on the show today.
Yeah, thanks, Brock. It's great to be hanging out with you and having a good conversation. This is a really important topic right now. So
Definitely, yeah. It's nice, like I said, to have you on, and it's great too to have the National At-Home Dad Network as the presenting organization for this podcast. And even if I have to step away or Danny has to step away, the nice part is that we have other guys that we can bring in and continue on with having the organization sponsor that. So I really appreciate you being one of the passionate guys who was behind saying like we need to get this thing off the ground. So I'm excited to have you on.
oh, thank you. Yeah, no, I think this is great. We need to have our voices out there, and this has been a great vehicle for that. So guys are doing a great job. Keep it up. And we hate to see anybody go, but we're just beginning. So stick around.
Right.
Keep doing it.
We're good. Yeah. Not no projections. I'm all good.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
I've got
No, no.
I've got quite a few years before my kids
That's
get
right.
old enough to where I've got to, think of other things. But
There you go.
so we're good. Well, hey, that out of the way. So most people have gotten to know me a little bit over the episodes. This will actually go down as episode 11. So we've crested that episode 10, and we're just going to continue climbing from there. But I just want to real quickly give you a chance just to share maybe just a little bit about who you are, maybe your family dynamic, that kind of thing. Stuff that I typically do on my other show. I just wanted to bring that in here just to give you a chance to introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm Jonathan Heisey-Grove. I've been affiliated with the National At-Home Dad Network since late 2012, when I attended my first convention here in the DC area. I am a resident of Alexandria, Virginia. I have two kids. They are 13 and 8 years old, both boys. Um, and I have been doing this stay-at-home dad thing again since about 2012. Uh, Actually, 2011, excuse me, because I lost my job in the summer of 2012 or 2011. And at the time, my wife was looking for a new job. She had been at the same job for almost 10 years, and she was looking for a change. And my being let go from my last employer was that sort of moment in time where we said, okay, if we're going to make a change, let's do it now. Let's take the opportunity. She had a colleague from her time in Massachusetts, where I lived formerly, who moved to the DC area and said there are plenty of jobs here. He was working at HHS at the time, and we took a chance. About 5 months after I was let go, we packed up our things in November, and we moved down here to the DC area. And so then I became a fish out of water. I was a fish out of water with a four-year-old at the time, and I had no idea what the hell I was doing. I had no friends. I have some family that live in the area. They live just north of Baltimore, but they weren't close. So I was just on my own, and I got to take my son. We were able to get him into a preschool, so that gave me a chance to settle in and try to figure out my way around this area, get him a little bit of time to develop on his own. But again, I was the primary caregiver. I was the guy doing most of the schlepping around and whatnot, and taking him places and making sure he was entertained. And it turns out in the summer of 2012, I took my son to a rec center nearby, one of the county facilities that has programs for kids of all ages and adults and whatnot. And while I was standing outside one of these classes, there was another dad there with his kids, and he kind of turned to me, and he was checking me out, and I could like sense it off to the side, like what the hell's going on? Okay, this is kind of weird. And so he's like, "So are you, the typical question, are you here just for the day to take care, or what's kind of trying to figure out what my situation was." Said, "No, I'm here. I'm the one that takes care of my son." I don't remember exactly how I said it, but um, it was implied that I'm the guy who's taking care of him all day. I'm taking him around here and there. He was, "Oh, no kidding. So am I." So it was like all of a sudden, like all
Your
of a sudden
world's aligned.
yeah, the worlds aligned, the curtains started to part, and I was starting to see a light. And he was like, you know what, there's a conference coming up, and it's here in the area, you should come and check it out. It's for at home dads. I'm like, okay, that sounds pretty cool. Yeah, I'll check with my wife, make sure, because she was new at her job and she was already stressed out. And how do we manage that, right?
Right.
Any dads with kids at 4 years of age and a spouse that's working full time, you've got to figure out a way to balance out your time with their time, and making sure that you get some break time. And so I went to her and I said, "Look, there's this conference coming up, and it's right here in DC. It's not far, so I don't even have to go to a hotel. I don't have to do any of that stuff. I can just literally drive over there." And she was like, "Okay, yeah, let's go ahead. Let you do that." And I was hooked. I was instantly hooked. Um, it was at a time where the organization um, it was just turning a corner. It had just changed its name to the National At Home Dad Network. Um, and they were still kind of getting this convention thing going and getting it bigger and bigger. Now, you know, by then it was, oh shoot, I don't even, what is that? I think it was like the 17th annual at that point, the 16th or 17th. And the designer in me, being a graphic designer by trade, the graphic designer in me saw all the materials that, like, I was instantly, what do these materials look like and how do they, and I said, all right, these guys need some help. I'll offer to do design work for them, right? So I jumped in, and ever since then I've been affiliated in the background, for the most part. And then in the last several years, I've slowly worked my way onto the board, and I am where I am now. So anyway, did that kind of tell you a little bit
Yeah.
about me?
That's a good rundown for sure. I think that's a lot of description, a lot of detail, and it was all good. I'd say
Thanks.
that you check a lot of boxes in your story of
Hmm.
your your journey of being a stay-at-home parent. That
Yeah.
I hear a lot of dads in the closed group talk about, as far as like, how do I do XYZ? Like, I live in a town where I don't know any other dads, or I'm
Yep.
moving to this area. Like, what do I do? There's so many different things like that. Or how do
Yeah.
I even address, like, when someone asks me, like, kind of like, what's your status? Like, as far as like,
Right.
you know, are you a working dad? Are you just kind of
Oh,
like,
does your wife have the day off, or is your wife doing this and you're taking care of the kid?
right? The
Right.
or the horrible one of, oh, are you babysitting your kid?
Oh,
Which we
yeah.
all go to.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
thus our slogan, dads don't babysit. It's called parenting. But I
That's
think,
right.
like I said, like your story checks a lot of boxes for guys who, hopefully when they hear this will not feel alone, and maybe
Yeah.
feel a little more seen as to,
Right.
I'm not the only one going through this. So no, I really appreciate you
Yes.
sharing all that. Um,
Sure.
Along with that, though, it kind of carries us into our conversation for today, which, is the whole idea of equality, and the idea that looking at a stay-at-home dad, we're not any more special than stay-at-home moms. We do the same things. There are some functionalities that mom can do that dad can't do physically.
Right.
You know,
Right.
we
Right.
all know we all know we can't feed that child the way that a mom does.
Right.
And so that's probably the biggest difference. But in all actuality, like we're all in the same playing field, and for whatever reason, we always get looked at as this like prized unicorn at the fair, type of situation, and it
Right.
really it really needs to stop.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
um, and different people have done different things over the years to try to change the perspective or the view or even the language in which it's talked about. But I
Yeah.
feel like it's been thrusted back into the light a little bit, in a different way. And we always try, of course, not to get political, but
Right.
and we're going to definitely walk this very thin line tonight. But with the fact that we have the very first female VP, which that's a whole
Right.
nother topic. We have the first, or what we would call in this case, the second gentleman, but he's the
Right.
first, um, husband in this position. And so,
Right.
I think that, there's something to be said by just the excitement of what that looks like and why it is that he took on that position.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So this moment in time is it's sort of an example of how societal norms and the things that people have been accustomed to are suddenly challenged by someone in a higher position of power doing something out of that societal norm. Right. This is another barrier being broken. So, of course, that's going to get attention. Um, when in reality, it's been happening for decades.
Right.
This kind of supporting the spouse and doing parenting from the flip side, it's been going on for decades. We all know that, but not many people know that because it doesn't get the mainstream media attention. It doesn't get the higher, the higher echelons or whatever you want to call it of the world getting their eyes on it.
Well, and you've also
Um,
had a whole bunch of bad, quote unquote, publicity
mhm.
or images of dads that have had to be broke down. And what's really sad is it's not a lot. Like it's not a huge number. It's
Mhm.
more that whole idea of a few bad apples kind of make the whole
Yes.
thing bad. And
Right.
here we are trying to change the mindset of marketing companies, of just
Yes.
the general public, itself, and even companies, like as far as
Sure.
who you work for. They're just such a skewed, like that whole Mad Men idea of the men work, the women stay home. um,
Right.
and really that's not the case. And in this country, and the world itself is really shifting into, um, what would hopefully become almost a 50-50, where you're going to have just as many dads staying at home with the kids as you are moms.
Yeah. So there are a lot of factors, and I'm glad you brought up some of these, like company environments, right? So the places in which people work have a sort of corporate mandate on their say they are a for-profit company, they have a certain bottom line that they want to meet. And so they create the culture that dictates how that's going to happen. And if you are entering into a company that has a poor track record on just on being kind to families and parents in general, then it becomes harder to break even more um, offline or not mainstream ideas of parenting, right?
Yeah.
Um, so when I was working as a designer, um, the private company that I worked for had a um, business mentality and a working mentality of there were a lot of young designers who didn't have families. So they were able to just sit at work for hours and hours and hours, overnight sometimes, working on projects because they didn't have a family to go home to
Yeah.
and they didn't have kids to take care of. So, and when I entered into that environment, it was like, gangbusters, I'm making bucks. It's
Mm-hmm.
awesome. I don't have to worry about being home at any time. I don't have to da, 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 da. And so let's just let the money rain. Come on, right? And and then once I got into a relationship and I started to value the needs of the relationship, and we decided to discuss having a family, then I had to go back to to the same employer that I really loved, and I said, all right, we're thinking of having a child. How can I get the work done and still, what can we do to work that out? And um, I love the guy, so I hate to say it, but he doesn't have kids,
Yeah.
and he didn't understand that ability to break from um, work because he was so dedicated to it. And so to me, that was an impasse. Like, I couldn't justify giving up time with my child to be at work as much as work wanted me to be there instead of with my child.
Well, and that's kind of been the biggest thing for a lot of these companies is just that whole idea of, one, eh, no parent or someone who's even planning to become a parent should ever feel like they should have to have some awkward conversation with their employer about what they're going to do with their family, which is the thing
Right,
that has kind of really set this whole sort of new perspective off. And at the
right.
same time too, it's like it's just that whole, it's almost a generational shift. I kind of feel like, in a way,
Hmm.
you've got the
Yeah,
old guard who kind
yeah,
of grew up in that mindset of like, you're the man, you go to work, you do these things, like you're the breadwinner. And you know you might be all like, yeah, we're pregnant, and hand out cigars to every person in the
yeah,
at the
yeah,
workplace or whatever. And then you might not even be there for the delivery, and it's just kind of like, oh, well done, honey, thanks for popping that kid out, I'll keep working and bringing home the dough. And it's like, and so now you've got guys who um are trying, and women too, who are like, I want to, how do I do this, like,
right.
and
Yes.
so yeah, it's a very hot topic that I think we're going to see more and more light get shined on it as the years go on.
Well, to get back to the point of Doug Emhoff and being second gentleman, it now shines a light on the reality that a husband can support his spouse, his wife, or whomever he's married to, um, as them being a primary breadwinner,
Hmm.
or the main focus of work in the home or whatever, um, and still have a role and importance at home, dealing with the management of things at home.
Yeah.
Because I mean, moms, we hear you. We know
Yep.
it's not just about kids. It is managing a a home front. It is
Yeah.
there is management involved. It is not just kids and eating bonbons and sitting at watching TV. There is real work and whatnot going. And I guess a benefit, not really a benefit, but a benefit of what we've been going through over the last year is it's also helping to shine a light on the fact that the parenting role at home is extremely important,
Without a doubt.
and it helps the partners understand that each of their roles is incredibly important. How do they balance those together, right?
Yeah.
So in in our home, that's my wife's that's my wife's office right there behind me, and she is down here for maybe 10 hours a day sometimes, but she's confident in the fact that I'm managing the needs of our kids in the rest of the home, and she doesn't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
That she allows her to focus on her job and her work.
I'm in a
Um,
very similar situation. My wife works downstairs in um our one of our extra, we have like an extra bedroom that's in like the basement or whatever, but that's
mhm,
her office.
mhm.
And she can hear the kids every once in a while, especially like if we'll watch a show and they like giggle really loud, or if we're just playing around or whatever. And but she's like in this way of, I feel very confident to be able to do the things I need to do because I know he's taking care of the kids. And even
Yeah.
in like stressful situations, like she's, heard me get after the kids because they're, acting like a bunch of crazy monkeys. And she told me even last night, she's like, there are times where I want to just stop what I'm doing and come up and just help you or give you a break because I can just
Yeah.
hear all the frustration. And she's like, but
Yeah.
I know that one, I can't. And two, I know that you have it under control and that you're going to take care of it. And so, yeah, it's
Yeah.
in this situation that we're in currently with the pandemic and everything. Yeah, I think a lot of parents have had to come to the realization of like, one, I need to have confidence that, whoever the primary caregiver is, that they've got it under control. And
Mhm.
two, that there's a deeper conversation like Danny and I had with our wives few shows back about how to give each parent time to have free time for themselves and to recharge. So a lot
Right.
of
Yes.
different
Well,
things being
yeah.
built.
That's very necessary. Everybody needs downtime to decompress from what they're doing, whether it's taking care of kids or dealing with, the work environment, the people that are in their work environment, right? Um, so you have to be able to carve those spaces and know that at the end of the day, when wife is done with work, or your spouse is done with work, excuse me, that they do need time to decompress. They do need time. Um, and sometimes it's apparent that they need that time, that you have to spend that extra bit of time, caring for your kids and making sure that they're okay.
Yeah.
Um, and then there's making sure that you get that time for yourself and asking for that time, right? So
Yep.
creating that balance, figuring it out, as spouses, you should be able to read each other, and that's where that equality comes into play, right? I need space, you need space. How can I manage that? How can I give that to you? And
Yeah.
how can I get that from you? Let's in talking it out, figuring it out.
Definitely. Yeah, I know like for me and my wife was trying to figure out how she could get more time to, or at least have time to even just like exercise on some sort of level. And I just
Hmm.
and she's got the ability to walk out the side door of the house without the kids seeing her and attacking her. And
Yeah.
so I was like, use that door, go for a walk. Like that after you're done for the day, like go for a 30-minute walk and just have that time. Cause I mean, that's another way for her to basically simulate a um like a drive time, like that
Hmm.
commute home kind of thing. So that's definitely something that we've put into play to help us out and to help her out. um
Yeah.
especially, people were trying to stay healthy, like COVID's definitely
Yeah.
tacked on weight on people, and they not happy. I mean, it's done it to me too, so I completely understand.
Yep.
But along with with Doug Imhoff, now, so you've got him as a first, his first position, or him being the first second gentleman.
Yep.
Um, you've got the first female VP. Now,
Yep.
the other thing that you have is the first working first lady.
Yes.
So
True. Yep.
so Dr. Jill Biden is actually going to continue
Yep.
teaching as a professor during this time, which
Yep.
is another interesting story in itself too, because I think it just shines another kind of like equality in itself as well. Like, hey, like, yes, my husband is like the most powerful man, situation, but by golly, I'm not going to give up what I'm doing,
Right.
just because of that.
Yep.
And you know, it brings a whole nother like conversation, I feel like, of just like the logistics of how they're going to go about that, and
Right.
Secret Service
Right.
is gonna have their work cut out for them.
So, well, and it goes back to carving out space and time, right?
Right.
So, and having those conversations, because my wife is a doctor. She got her doctorate last year,
Yeah.
and now she is going to be teaching again. She used to teach before she got it, and we had that discussion. All right, she's not going to be teaching every week. She actually had a class tonight that she was teaching, and then she's got several weeks where she's not. But it's understood that she's trying to do more than just her job and do something that's fulfilling for her.
Yeah.
And that's her way to do it. So creating that space at home, creating that space in your mind that says this is something that she needs, you support it by by getting getting your kids out of the way. Get, doing the things that you have to do to carve that space out for them, and giving them the mental support that they need to do it. I mean, I personally do not get in the way of what my wife wants to achieve by putting it down. I will be straightforward and say I'm worried about how much time that might take away from kids and things like that.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to say don't do it, because I want her to succeed in that. I've always been a proponent of strong women, and my wife. When I met my wife, I almost knew that I would. Back when she wasn't my wife, when I met my wife, I kind of knew that this was the person I wanted to be with because of her independence and her ability to try and play on a level playing field
Yeah.
with everybody else, and insisting that she was able to do it. And it was like, hell yeah, go for it, do it. I love it. Um, and I think we're starting to see that start to develop now, where we are finding more and more women out in the workplace. We're starting to see that, um, not to make it political again, but we're starting to see that in government too. We're starting to see the diversity of gender, let alone the diversity of race, um, as being a component of making a more equitable society.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
we're
I
all.
think. Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh,
Sorry.
go ahead.
I was gonna say, well, so I wanted to touch on one thing you mentioned, like the race part of it, and I think that there's even an equality conversation in the fact of like looking at it from people of color, who, especially dads of color, who have
Hmm.
who have never really been looked at as being a quote unquote suitable primary caregiver
Oh
for
yeah.
all the negativity that's been put out there about dads of color. And
Hmm.
honestly,
Hmm.
it's complete and utter BS, because these guys are doing amazing stuff and they're stepping up and really, and I
They
feel like
are.
in a lot of ways, just breaking the whole like stigma that's out there
Yes.
about dads of color. And I love it. Like anytime I'm
Yes.
out at a park, and I usually will see a dad that's out with his kids, I'll go up to him and be like, hey man, like, introduce myself, And I just
Yeah.
straight up ask them, man, I'm like, are you a stay-at-home dad? And they just give me the weirdest look, like they've never been asked that before. You thought I just asked them if they were a horse of a different color type of
Right,
thing,
right,
like,
right, right.
and I remember specifically having that conversation with one particular dad who I was like, hey man, I was like, are you a stay-at-home dad? And he's like, never been asked that question before. And he's like, I'm like, well, I go, I don't want to like alarm you or anything, but I was like, I'm curious. Like, I was like, are you home with the kids throughout the day? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. He's like, but I have a job like in the evening. I'm like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah,
I'm like, you're considered a stay-at-home dad still though. And he was like,
right.
I've never heard anybody say that before. And he's like, that would be so weird to like say to any guy in my circle. Like that would just throw them in the wrong direction. And I just said, honestly, man, I was like, you should just own it. And I was like,
Yeah,
I was like, you're doing
right.
a great thing by, being there for your kids so that you can support your partner or spouse or whatever, because at the time I didn't know
Yeah,
anything about them, but I was like, you know, you're being a great role model for your kids, but you're being a supportive partner. And, you know, not to make it look like, you're some shiny trophy or anything, but I was like, I think you need to realize like you're doing a great thing.
right, right. Exactly. It is, giving others the confidence in what they're doing
Hmm.
is critical in them trying to break the perceptions of what people think is the reality, right?
Yeah.
So, like you were just saying, dads of color, especially, are actually more involved in the parenting of their children than non-color people of
Yeah.
Caucasians and whatever else, right? And that's something most people don't think about or maybe even believe, um, because they've been fed a steady diet over decades that black men are not good role models for kids, whereas that's not the case. We were seeing so many more cases now and so much more involvement of dads as being primary caregivers or being a role model for their children and being there for their family
Yeah.
far more than news and other outlets will lead you to believe, right? um, we are fortunate in what we do and the organization that we're in that we can see that. And so how can we, tell that story to others? How can we emulate that to others?
Yeah.
um, and the first way to do that, right, is doing what you're doing. You're going up and you're just saying, asking flat out, are you a stay-at-home dad? Are
Hmm.
you, and breaking that wall to find out, and then supporting that person, um, because self-confidence is really critical in being able to show others that what you're doing is absolutely normal.
Yeah.
I'm not one to really care a whole lot what other people are thinking about me. At least I like to believe that. Um, and so when whenever I've gone out and I've been doing errands with my kids and whatnot, I don't I don't really care what other people are thinking or what they're. I'm just out there doing my thing.
Right.
Um, I was I went to Target one time years ago, and I was just out in the parking lot. I was literally just out in the parking lot putting my kids in the car, or putting one of my kids in the car, and a woman rolled up. She was leaving the store. She rolled up on me. She said, "You know what you're doing is awesome. It's so great to see you, so you're like doing what you're doing and not caring about." And I was like, "Thank you. That's really awesome. I'm glad that someone recognized that what I was doing was perfectly normal. It wasn't like some unicorn thing happening in the middle of nowhere. It was just a normal everyday occurrence that dad's taking care of business, is taking care of his kids. It's
Yeah. Well,
nothing to be rude about."
I honestly, I thought you were going to share a different story, but very similar in the parking lot. um,
Oh.
because the other story that I heard, somebody else must have shared this in the closed group, but basically there was a dad who was out with his kids, like you were talking about, like you were doing, but they
Hmm.
saw another dad who was just like kind of struggling to get the kids in the car and a bunch of different things, and had like, had the groceries in the carts, and we're getting them in the car. And this dad, and they were just like, I think across like from each other, so they weren't too far from him, but he could see that he was like struggling. And he thought to himself, if this was a mom, like somebody would be walking over being like, hey, can I help you, like can I take this, can I take the empty cart for you to the care, to the corral or whatever
Right. Right.
type of thing. And he just was like, I'm gonna go over there. And he just went over and like he encouraged the dad. Like he was like, hey man, you got this. Don't worry about it. He's like, I'm just gonna take your empty cart and put it away
Yeah.
for you so you don't have to worry about it. And you can, take care on doing what you're doing. And he walked away just like, this was really cool. But the dad like shouted from across, he's like, thank you so much. He's like,
Yeah.
I was just like, thank you for recognizing me. Like I'm here, like
Yes.
I'm not invisible. And
Hi.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think so many
Yeah.
times, like people will see dads and their kids, and they kind of do have that invisibility of, you're not going to be treated maybe the same way as a mom out with their kids kind of deal,
Right.
or however it is.
Right.
And so I I did, just that kind of thing. But at the same time too, it all comes down to looking at each other on that level playing field of,
Hmm.
when parents are out and about with their kids, and you see a parent that's in a situation where maybe they just need that extra adult to come up and be like, hey, I'm here for you. Like,
Right.
even if it's just say like, you got this, you're doing great. I know it's
Right.
probably a really crappy situation as far as like what you're dealing with, but you're doing good kind of deal. And I've told dads that before when
Yeah.
I'm at the park. We will have like a dad's meetup at the park or something, and one dad will just have that kid that has the ultimate meltdown and then walks back and he's like super apologetic and
Uh-huh. Yeah.
really embarrassed that it
Yeah.
happened. And we're
Yeah.
like, that's parenting, man. Like
Right.
you're fine.
Right.
It's all
It's
good.
okay.
You
It
know,
happens every day.
right. And then the best part is that you
This ain't new.
see you see some moms, if they're moms that know each other, like they're very much like that. But then you
Yeah.
get the scattered moms that really don't know each other, and
Hmm.
they don't really run, in that same gamut sometimes. And so it's just very interesting. The one comment that I always get, because I'll be like, yeah, I'm a part of the National At Home Dad Network, and we have this convention every year. And they're like, a convention, and we get to talking about that,
Yeah.
or we've got these, this closed group, and we're on there communicating and talking and getting to know each other and stuff. And they're like, well,
Right.
we've got a
Right.
neighborhood group or whatever, which is great. Like I'm, these moms groups that have neighborhood groups is awesome, but there's nothing nationally that they have to like bring them from all over to be like, hey, we have one
Right.
common bond type of thing. And
Right.
which brings its own set of conversations to it. But
Sure.
um, yeah, it's funny. Like you get people like that, but I really just want for people to see parents as parents, like, and
Right.
us, and that's,
Right.
I think that we're getting closer to it. I mean, I've been I've been a dad for now coming up on 8 years, and things
Hmm.
have changed drastically just in those 8 years. I've seen so much
Yeah.
change happen.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah. Absolutely.
and it's been awesome. I think that, like we were talking about companies, for instance, I think that when you have companies like Dove Men Plus Care, that's under the Unilever umbrella, the
Hmm.
things that they're doing, and the ways that they're going about working with government policies to get things put in place for other businesses to have maybe an easier way to, I don't know, for whatever lack of better words, maybe feel more comfortable with giving that ability for parents in
Yeah.
their companies to be able to be a parent, um, whatever that
Right.
looks like. But that's the kind of stuff I really want to applaud. That's the stuff that should be considered like a hallelujah, like kind of
Right.
moment.
Yeah. Parenting equality starts with better better company policies that encourage and support families, and especially when it comes to maternity and paternity leave, right?
Yeah.
It being able to be there at the beginning of a child's life, and starting there, and being allowing the parents to be there for the child instead of just the mom. um, it, that's pretty critical in the early development of a child, is creating bonds early on. And so when we can start to encourage companies to embrace the fact that you give a father paternity leave to care for their child in the first couple of weeks or the first month,
Yeah.
you're creating a better bond with your employee because you value the employee's need,
Mm-hmm.
and the employee is still going to come back because you valued them and their need.
Definitely.
And then they will start to work out a balance that works for them, that gives priority not only to the company but to their family, and
Definitely.
vice versa, right?
Yeah, I mean, the company that my wife works for, when I first started working, because we both worked for the same company, but when I started there, um, they had a 4 week paid paternity leave for the dads, and they had eight. I think yeah, eight for the moms, which is still really generous. I mean, that's huge. There's companies that barely even allow dads 2 weeks off. Um, what was interesting was,
I was in that space.
were you in that space? Yeah, I've talked to guys who have been in that space where they had 2 weeks, and even then they felt uncomfortable even taking the 2 weeks. So, so that was interesting. But as we came into our second being born, they were in the talks of doubling the amount of time for both moms and dads. And
That's awesome.
yeah, and I was like, this is crazy. Like they're
Yeah.
really, like, that's a breakthrough conversation that this company was having. And there were whispers of it, and they were getting really close to like announcing it. And I was like, ooh, this is awesome. And there was another lady who she was pregnant at the same time as my wife, and they were really close in due dates. And we ended up I think a week before her going into labor. And so I ended up still just getting 4 weeks at the time. And my wife was working for a different company at the time. So it didn't really, like, they gave her plenty of time off.
Mhm.
But the lady, the day, like, she was able to schedule a C-section, and they weren't announcing when it was going to happen. So she schedules her C-section, has the
Mhm.
baby, and then the next day they announced that they were doubling that they had officially doubled the time, and it was supposed to
Wow.
be 16 weeks.
Wow.
And apparently she spent like the day after her kid was born on the phone with HR being like,
Is
you're gonna grandfather me in here
I was
somehow,
going to
right?
say, can we grandfather this? Because come on.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I believe she ended up getting it granted just because of the fact that she was like, I could have scheduled this for like the next day, like, or even
Hmm.
2 days. I'd have been fine.
Hmm. Yep.
So they ended up giving it to her. But it was just the idea. Like, so now that company has 8 weeks for
Yeah,
dads and 16 weeks for moms.
that's awesome.
And the really cool part is for the dads is that it doesn't have to all be taken at once.
Mm.
And so I know quite a few guys who they would schedule the first 4 weeks off. Like, they understood, like, 4 weeks, that's highly needed.
Yep.
But then to be able to have the next, 4 weeks to be able to sporadically be like, all right, I can take off for doctor's appointments, and I can be there for my partner and my baby and all this different stuff, was just huge. And like you said, it boosts morale. like
Yeah,
they want to come
absolutely.
they want to come back to work, and they're
Yeah.
excited to be there, and the productivity level jumped considerably. Again, that was a thing that they kept sharing in the meetings with us too, was like, hey, like, this is proven to work. So yeah, I
Right.
think that more companies will hopefully see that and change their models of how they go about granting paternity leave to their employees.
Yeah, I would hope so. And if you can think about it, this is part of it. Is good. These kind of changes are going to be incremental. They're not going to just all of a sudden, boom, there's a whole new change and you got to deal with it, right?
Right.
We as a society do best by incremental change. We make a change, we see how well it works, and if it doesn't, then we modify it. Or if it really works, it stays in place, and people not get accustomed to it, but they realize that it wasn't so detrimental to make that change. So it's okay to have 8 weeks of paternity leave for a employee because they're still coming back and they're still involved with the company, but you are valuing their time away, and they value that you value them.
Right.
It's cyclical, and so um, I think these changes are going to happen over time, just as we're seeing the how equity is starting to become more and more prominent as we go. I mean, the developments of yesterday, the codification of Kamala Harris being a VP of this country helps to create that new benchmark that says, look, it is entirely feasible to have a very successful woman in a family, and the family survives and the husband is still valid and what he does at home is still valid, and he still has responsibilities that aren't that's it's not detrimental to the family dynamic. It's
Right.
actually, by the fact that they're supporting each other, makes it a stronger relationship, makes it
That
a stronger
was
family.
that. I was hoping that's where you were going to go towards, because I feel
Yeah.
like that change is what can help build a stronger relationship for
Yes.
sure. So yeah, I'm glad you said that. I was like, I hope that's where he's going.
And I went there.
You got it. You nailed it, man. Good job.
Yes.
Awesome. Oh, I tell you, this is a conversation that I feel like has just been brewing for me
Yeah.
to eventually get to have, especially with you. Like, I love having conversations with you, and I know that we only get to talk typically like once a month in board meetings, but
Yeah, that's true.
we talk over other
We talk every now
communications,
and
but
then. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
from time to time. But it's great to be able to get to sit down with you for for this amount of period of time and be able to just have a conversation about such a passionate topic that I feel like the
Yeah.
organization has really grabbed onto and has been a part of for so long anyways. but
Yes.
but two, to just the different avenues. I mean, like, um I feel like the organization has taken a turn towards even more equality in the fashion of trying to just be more open and inclusive to dads, whether
Yes.
it be dads of color or dads of the LBGT community,
Yes.
whatever that looks like.
Right.
That there is that open door. And so that's one of the things I'm most proud about, to be a part of this organization, is that change has been happening over these past few years.
Yeah.
And it's exciting to see where things are going, and it's also really exciting to talk to different dads who have become a part of the organization that were like, I never knew this place existed, or man, I'm
Right.
so glad that this place is even around, because I thought
Right.
I was a lone fish swimming in a big bowl.
Parenting is a shared experience. It doesn't matter what your skin looks like. It doesn't matter who you love. It doesn't matter, what your belief systems are. And in the end of the day, we're all parents trying to raise kids. And that is a hell of a time to try. I mean, that is just, it's so daunting. So any support you can give a fellow parent, all the better. I mean, you're all going through the same struggles.
Right.
Kid is going to have a tantrum whether you like it or not. A kid is going to refuse to eat whether you like it or not. It doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter what your socioeconomic status is. It doesn't matter what your ethnicity is. They all kids have the same basic needs, and they all act the same basic ways. And it's how do we support each other in helping raise those little rugrats to be better kids. And be and be a model for them on how they can be better people as they grow up, right?
Yeah.
So if you can support each other to do that, even better. I mean, reach out a hand, help each other out. But, you know, getting back to equality, right? Supporting your spouse helps you do your job and helps your family be stronger, and it helps to elevate the work that you do. It helps to elevate the standing of your spouse with your kids as well, to see them successful and you're supporting them while mom or dad or whatever designation your spouse might be is
Yeah.
being successful because you're supporting them. It even better.
Definitely. I think that's great. And honestly, I feel like that is sort of like the closing comment to this conversation, because I feel like you pretty much said the things that I couldn't say eloquently.
I don't know if I said it eloquently, but
You said it quite well.
thank you. Thank you. I
Yes.
appreciate that.
Yeah. So yeah, well, Jonathan, thanks so much for coming on and just given some time to just talk about this topic and filling in for Danny. I know that
Yeah, happy
he
to do so.
appreciated it. Yeah. I will say that for anybody who's still listening at this point, you know, I know it's been a long conversation, but the last thing I want to say is that we're within 10 months of our annual HomeDadCon
Yes.
coming up in October 14th through the 16th here in Cincinnati, Ohio. And there are tickets available. So if you are looking to get together with some other at-home dads and you're looking to build your professional career as a stay-at-home dad, and even if you're not a stay-at-home dad, if you're just a dad who's just looking for a way to just build your fatherhood, just more positivity into your fatherhood and just wanting to kind of learn some new things, it's definitely the convention to go to for that.
Yeah.
You go to homedadcon.org and you can find all the information there for tickets and hotel and any other information you got on that. But if you have any other questions aside from that, definitely feel free to message us within anchor.fm. There's ways to do that, or message us through whatever platforms you're listening to this podcast on. But with that, this has been a great conversation. I've enjoyed getting to have this time, and I just thank everybody that came and listened today.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Glad you tuned in and are listening in, and hopefully you got something out of it. And check in for more from Brock and Danny. Man, they're killing it. So keep up the good work, guys. Thanks.
Thanks. Have a good day.
Good on me. I'm a dad, that's what I do.